Hey, this is the Vivo Nex 3, Vivo's latest flagship device from a lineup known for being a little experimental. The Nex 3 continues that tradition, but in a subtler and more polished way. So let's take a closer look at the phone and see if it's any good. The Vivo Nex 3 is a pretty big and heavy phone, but not in a bad way. It feels solid, well-built, and substantial. At first glance, the design of the phone is fairly understated, especially in this glowing night color option. But once you turn on the screen, it's anything but understated. Vivo calls this the waterfall full view display, which basically means the screen flows over to the sides of the phone. Other than a tiny bit of bezel at the top and bottom, it's pretty much all screen. However, even though it is stunning to look at, it does present a couple of side effects. Because all displays has limited viewing angles, the curved edges looks a little dimmer from the front. Also, you will see some light reflections on the curved edges under certain lighting conditions. Thankfully, the brightness of the screen is pretty decent outdoors, so I haven't found that to be too distracting. Another thing is that because the screen goes all the way to the sides, there isn't really any room to hold the phone without touching the screen, and there isn't any room for physical buttons. That said, I haven't encountered any issues with accidental touches, so the palm rejection software seems to be working well. For the power and volume buttons, Vivo took a page out of their Apex 2019 concept phone earlier this year and implemented pressure sensors to replace those buttons. The power button is slightly textured and sandwiched between the volume keys. I actually kinda like this implementation. There is a haptic feedback when pressing those buttons, and they're quite responsive. I can customize the pressure required to activate those buttons, and it does pretty much everything that you would expect from physical buttons. If for some reason you still need a physical power button, there is still one at the top of the phone. While we're looking at the top of the phone, the Nex 3 still has a pop-up front camera, but it's now right in the middle and comes with an LED light. This pop-up camera is probably also why the phone has no IP rating for water and dust resistance. But on the bright side, we do get a headphone jack, which is kinda rare these days. It's using an AKM audio chip, and it sounds noticeably better than a lot of phones that I have tested. These days, I use wired IEMs almost every day before I go to sleep, so I'm definitely liking this. Unfortunately, in terms of speaker quality, the single bottom firing speaker is a little underwhelming. It's loud, but the quality is just average. It's a bit of a shame considering how good the phone is for media consumption. The Vivo Nex 3 is packing some serious hardware inside, so as expected, performance is excellent. Even for extended gaming sessions, I've never felt the phone get too warm. It seems like the vapor chamber cooling system is working quite well. The software experience is also smooth and responsive, despite being a heavily customized version of Android with a ton of features. Vivo calls it Fun Touch OS. I typically prefer a cleaner software experience, but there are some useful features here. However, I feel like the user experience is a little rough around the edges and has a bit of a learning curve. So for example, some of the UI design looks a little dated and are clearly inspired by iOS, like how control center and notifications are separated. I know Android fans will probably hate this, but having the control center at the bottom actually makes it easier to use one-handed. Anyway, if you really want to, you can move the control center to the top right side of the phone. FunTouch OS is also very aggressive when it comes to killing background apps. It actually closed an activity tracking app while I was still using it, all because I went into a music player to change the song. So I had to tweak the settings to make sure it doesn't do that again, and I feel like this isn't something that regular consumers should have to deal with. However, this aggressive app management is probably part of the reason why battery life has been good for me, with the other part being the huge 4500 mAh battery. Even with heavy usage, I've never seen the phone go below 20% at the end of the day. It also comes with a 22.5 watt fast charger, so I don't even mind that there isn't wireless charging here. Moving on to one of the most important aspects of a flagship phone these days, the Vivo Nex 3 is using a triple camera setup with the usual wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto camera. Image quality with the main camera is really good for the most part in daylight, and it's able to capture nice looking details. Having the ability to zoom in and out with the telephoto and ultra-wide angle lens makes it really flexible as well. It is also able to use the wide-angle camera for macro shots. However, at night, the main camera is pretty much the only one that is usable. Zooming in is pretty much just digital zoom from the main camera, and the ultra-wide-angle camera is just not able to capture enough light. It does have a night mode which works well enough, but it's only for the main camera. For video capture, there is software stabilization for 1080p 30 frames per second recording, but not for anything higher than that. However, there is a super anti-shake mode which uses the ultra-wide-angle camera with software stabilization, and that works decently well. The camera quality is not the best I've seen, but I think it is still pretty good. I enjoyed using it for the most part, and I think most folks will be happy with it as well. Anyway, I'll have a link in the description below with everything I took with the phone, so you guys can see for yourself whether the camera is good enough for your needs. The Vivo Nex 3 is not perfect, and it has its shortcomings, but I do think that it is a good alternative with a couple of unique features of its own. I'm still not a huge fan of the software experience, but it's not too bad once I got used to it. After that, I started appreciating the phone for the things that it is actually good at. It's a gorgeous looking phone that has a really nice display, great performance, excellent battery life, good cameras all round, and a headphone jack that sounds pretty good, all of which results in a solid smartphone experience for me. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Thanks again, and see you guys on the next one.